You got me loud and clear? Cool, cool. Absolutely, yeah, no, it was probably one of your first in January, I reckon, that, I spoke to you, so, yeah, no, it's great to speak to you again, Mike. Well, we've been quite busy at the Beernuts Productions Fun Factory. We've actually just released our 17th film, so that's pretty cool. So yeah, that's been the main thing that we've been up to. So yeah, how to land that dream job. It's out, like I say, it's our 17th film, and now it's available to download. Everybody can now watch it and hopefully enjoy it. So yeah. I know of Parks and Recreation. I haven't actually watched that. The promos actually look quite funny, so I would like to get around to watching that. But yeah, I have seen the English version of The Office. I never watched the US remake of it because I don't know. The remakes are never usually quite as good, usually, but I could be way wrong. I don't know, but I did watch obviously the Ricky Gervais one. So yeah, but it was funny actually because I would, me personally, I would classify How to Land This Dream Job as a mockumentary, whereas Simon, who's my main production guy, he thought it was more of a sitcom type thing. And yet, a couple of people I've spoken to have quite alarmingly said that it's probably something that they could actually play at HR departments in all offices all over the place. Yes. Well, I had when I do a project after I finish doing a particular whatever the project is, I've got like files on my computer, like just scripts and ideas all written down. And I just written a couple of comedy sketches, like job interview comedy sketches. So I had the criminal guy and I had the stuttering guy. They were two that I'd written, and there was one or two other ones there as well. And so I thought to myself, well, what if I put them together in like a bit of a mockumentary kind of format? And so that's what I did. So I had those four to start with. And then I thought, well, I'm going to have to now target every corner of society, which was my goal. So I've ended up with 16 applicants applying for a range of different jobs. And hopefully I've targeted sort of every corner of society. So, when I was writing it, I'm like, well, I need that stuck up, snobby, bitchy housewife. I haven't got her in there. So we'll put her in. And I need, the slutty young chick. So I'll put her in there. And then I need a guy who's like God's gift to women. So I'll put him in there. So then I need someone who's desperate for sympathy all the time, you know, like you see on the TV talent show. So we'll put him in there. So it was about targeting kind of every corner of society, because I'm a firm believer in, if you're going to make fun of one thing, you have to make fun of everything. You just can't pick on one type of people. You got to pick on everybody equally. So that was kind of my goal when I was writing it. So yeah, so I wrote the sketches first, and then there's voiceover narration in the piece as well, and that came later. So I would write the sketch, and then I would be like, well, what do we quote unquote learn from this particular person or situation? And so then I had to come up with the learning experience. So the narration was the last thing that went in. Yeah, I did, and yeah, I loved every single second of it. I thought it was like the greatest thing ever. I really really loved it. Yeah, I can't I can't fault any. Actually, this is kind of a weird coincidence on how things can just work in life. But the guy in How to Land That Dream Job, who was employee number two, who wanted to smoke his cigarettes and whatnot, he that particular guy is actually an usher at the Lyric Theatre where the Book of Mormon was playing, and I had no idea of this. And so, you know, he came in for his audition and everything was fine. I went to go see the Book of Mormon and everything was fine. And then I'm just chatting to him after the shoot, and you know, I'm like, "Oh, Michael," because I mean, most actors here also have day jobs because you know there's not enough acting work to keep them going full time. So I said, "Michael, just out of curiosity, do you do anything else other than acting?" And he says, "Oh yeah, I'm an usher at QPAC." And I'm like, "Wow, really?" He said, "Yeah." So I went to go see the Book of Mormon there a few weeks back. He said, "Oh yeah." He said, "What do you think?" And I told him that I really enjoyed it. And he said, I said to him, "How many walkouts do you get a night?" And he said, "Oh, at least five or six people walk out." Because he said, "You have just your theatre going people who don't do any research on what they're about to see, and they just go to every single show no matter what is playing." And he said, so they go, and about the third or fourth song in the African song, the "Fuck You God" song, he said that's the one where if they're going to walk out, that's where they'll walk out. He said so, and he really liked it as an actor because he's seen it. He said, I said to him, "How many times have you seen it?" And he said, "Oh, about 18 times." So, because obviously being an usher, he's got to watch it. So he said it's really good as an actor because you get to sort of dissect the performances and see how one actor does it this way and the understudy does it that way. And he said it's really interesting to sort of see the actors at work and working. He said it's almost like doing an acting school kind of thing. So he loves that job working at QPAC as an usher because he finds it really helpful for his own acting. And I mean, I thought he was obviously great in the film, which is why I hired him. But yeah, he's a nice guy, and hopefully I get to work with him again soon. Well, that's why it's so clever. You're absolutely right. Because yeah, I reckon I might have gone to the theatre maybe 3 or 4 times in my life, and it's not because I don't want to. It's just that there's other things I'd rather do. I guess. I mean, it's nothing against it. I mean, the few shows I've gone to, I've really enjoyed. Book of Mormon's definitely the best thing I've ever seen theatre wise, but that's because, like you just said, it's so well written. And I actually, because when I go to any kind of show or anything like that, I want to like get totally immersed in what I'm seeing. So, I got the program and all of that sort of stuff, and I was reading through it and all of that sort of stuff. And I think it was something like 3 or 4 years in development. And you can tell because, I mean, the writing is so incredible. And in the program, they said they did workshops every 6 months where they'd get actors and dancers in and they'd do the whole thing and then they'd rewrite it all. And then another 6 months, they'd redo the whole thing again. It was but you can tell, I mean, it's so incredibly done and it's so clever, like you say, the way they're able to combine the comedy that fellas like you and I really love to like your non-theater going kinds of people, getting that sort of comedy in there, but then giving it the theater twist, which makes it work. I mean, it's just, yeah, I just think it's wonderfully written. It's wonderfully performed. I can't fault it. And if people out there uh, are listening and they haven't gone to see it and it's playing somewhere nearby, I would definitely make the effort because I really thoroughly enjoyed it. And you're giving it 2 thumbs up. So, I mean, what could be bad about it, hey? I, I actually had that phrase, that Cashadia War or whatever it is. I've actually got that on a T-shirt. So I actually bought a T-shirt when I was there as well with that on it. So yeah, I was walking down the street the other day, and as I'm walking past a total stranger, and he just pointed at me and was gone, "Book of Mormon." I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. He's like, "Oh, it was great, wasn't it?" I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And so it was just as we were walking past each other on the street. But yeah, but it's hilarious how, because obviously it hasn't been playing in Australia very long at all, so not many people have actually seen it. So it's amazing how many people stop me and is like, "What the hell does that mean on your T-shirt? I don't know what's going on." So yeah, but because I had three to choose from, and I went with that one because I thought that would be the best option. So yeah. Well, the good news is, Mike, for fellas out there who want to do something nice for their girlfriend, they could be like, take them to that, and it looks like they're actually doing something nice for them by taking them to the theater. Whereas really, they're actually getting something out of it themselves because it's not actually a proper theater show, so to speak. It's kind of like when you go to see a romantic comedy at the, with your girlfriend at the cinema, and you actually find it really funny and entertaining, even though going in you were like, "Oh my god, do I really have to go and watch this?" So, it's one of those things where you can be a little bit sneaky and, you take your girlfriend along and she thinks you're doing a good turn, but really, you're just all about in it for yourself, you know? Well, marketing, I mean, just talking about marketing in general, it's something that for Beernuts Productions that I've found to be the hardest thing because, I mean, there's so much entertainment now for people to choose from. It's really hard to put your head above the crowd and say, look at me, check out my thing. So, I mean, marketing is so difficult. So, you have to be super clever about how you do it. And when you have a really good idea, like what you just said with Deadpool, and I mean, the Book of Mormon, I mean, that's been really, really well marketed as well. I mean, because it's so well written, it lends itself to being marketed so well. So, I mean, if you're able to market your product really, really well, I mean, that goes a long way to being successful, you know. So, yeah, marketing is always a challenge for us at Beernuts Productions and something that we constantly have to stay on top of. And so, yeah, if you, like I say, if you're able to place yourself a bit above everybody else, well, it's just going to help. You know what I mean? Yeah, no, because you are correct. It's very annoying because I mean, other people that might be listening who are filmmakers or podcasters or whatever they might be, creativity wise, that they're probably thinking exactly the same as you and me, which is, you know, I've got a product here which I think is really fantastic, and I think people will really, really enjoy it. If only I could get it in front of their eyeballs and ear holes so they know that I exist. You know what I mean? So it's really frustrating, but I mean, you just have to keep plugging away because if you want people to enjoy your work, which we all do, then you've got no other choice really. You can't just sit on your hands. You gotta be active in that space, and it's annoying and it's frustrating, but it's just the pain in the ass of the job. I mean, not all jobs can be fun all the time. There's got to be some shitty parts to what you do. You know. Yeah, absolutely. So once the final punctuation has been put on the page, the first thing I do is budget it. So I got to make sure that I've got enough money to make it, which is well, actually that happens beforehand. To be honest, because I look at my bank account and I see well the Beernuts Productions bank account, not my personal one, but I look at the Beernuts Productions bank account and I'm like, okay, well I've got this amount of money. So then I go through my scripts and I'm like, can't do that, can't do that. Ah, I could do that one. So I read it, I edit it, I do what I need to do to the script. Then I just recheck to make sure that, yes, I budget it properly to make sure, you know, because obviously everybody that's involved has to get paid. So with the How to Land a Dream Job, I've got 21 actors, I've got 7 crew members, and I've got, 21 actors, 7 crew members. I've got costumes that a couple of them needed to be hired. I've got obviously artwork that needs to be done. Well, props, artwork, they're the same thing in my mind. So I've got them that need to be made. So I've got also locations I need to source to make sure that this one was easy, but because we just used my actual office, so that was easy. And then the house we use is actually Simon, the main production man. We just used. I said, "Can we shoot outside your house?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure. Easy for me. I just have to roll the equipment out of the garage. So that's easy." So yeah, the locations this time was simple. So it's just going through all that stuff. So because I'm anally organized, because you have to be anally organized. But so I go through all that stuff to make sure that, yes, it's budgeted correctly. These are everything that I need. Then it's on to casting. So, well, the crew I already know. So I call up the different crew members that I need and, organize the date, make sure they're all sweet. Then casting for this one took a long time because, like I said, there's 21 cast members. So that took a good, at least a month, probably more 6 weeks to cast it, to get all the, I mean, some of the cast I had worked with before, but not all of them. So probably about, I don't know, out of the 21, I'd say off the top of my head, maybe 8 or 9 I'd worked with before. So I still made them audition because that's important. I still need to know that they can, that they understand the jokes and they're going to be able to deliver the jokes how I need them to be delivered. So I still make everybody audition. So yeah, casting and then rehearsing. So with this one, a lot of rehearsal, because again, a lot of cast means a lot of rehearsal. So once the final punctuation mark was put on the page, it was about 12 weeks of pre-production, so 12 weeks of preparation, and then we film, edit, and release all in 1 week. So there's no mucking around when it comes time to doing it. So yeah, it's all about organization and preparation, making sure that everything is 100% good to go. And then on the day, I had pretty much every actor would come in at half an hour intervals, and we would knock out one, boom, he goes, next one's in. Knock them out, boom, they go, next one's in. So it was kind of like we just churned them through like butter. So that's kind of how the filming day went. And then, yeah, we just edit it up and it goes straight to the IT people as soon as it's edited, and they put it up straight away. So, yeah, the back end's really, really quick, but it can only be quick if you're super, super organized and prepared, which I make sure that I am, and make sure that my actors are as well, because their performance is obviously key to making it funny. So yeah, that's really important. Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. Actually, the one of the characters is almost verbatim a job interview. So I was looking for somebody. We spoke about marketing earlier. So I put the ad out to for I needed a marketing consultant for Beernuts Productions. So I put the ad out to all the appropriate places, and a guy came in for the job interview, and employee number 2, who was the guy who wanted to have a cigarette, but before that, there's a conversation, a back and forth that he and I have, and that back and forth before he starts with the cigarettes, because that part is made up. But the back and forth he and I have is almost verbatim what happened in that job interview looking for a marketing guy. This guy came in, and I'm like, well, how are you going to bring people to the Beernuts Productions website? And he's like, well, that depends. Depends on what? Depends on what you want. Like it went on, and I'm like, are you insane? I mean, that's what is wrong with you? Get out of my office. So yeah, I I have had a few nutbags come in, and I mean, with actors, I mean, actors have kind of a reputation for being. Some of them can be slightly eccentric. I mean, they're creative people, so that's just sort of par for the course. And yeah, no, I've had some strange folks audition as well, just for a range of different roles that I've done over the years. I've had some actors come in who yeah, would just blow your mind, I think, if you were a fly on the wall. No doubt about that. So, I've had all kinds of strange experiences, which I suppose was one of the other reasons why, with How to Land That Dream Job, I was able to sort of write it as quickly as I could, because, I mean, I've auditioned a lot of people. I mean, I've been in that situation of interviewing a lot of people, because an audition is essentially a job interview. I make it that way when my auditions are run quite differently from how a regular production company would do their auditions. How I get the actors in is the same, but how I run the audition is I make them do the entire scene. Whereas usually with an audition, you just have to sort of memorize a paragraph of dialogue or something like that. But I want to make sure, because we have limited budget and limited time, I want to make sure that they understand all the jokes. So I make them read through all of their role. So it might take 20 minutes for the audition, and I make them do the whole thing. And I don't give them any direction. It's about me seeing how they get the jokes, because obviously everybody sort of interprets comedy very differently. So I want to make sure that they're on my wavelength before I give them any sort of direction or anything like that. So that's sort of how I run an audition. So yeah, I've seen numerous actors, and some of them are lovely, fantastic, creative, wonderful people. And there's a small percentage of them that are a bit cuckoo bananas. So yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm really glad that you brought that up, actually, because another thing, obviously, when I'm editing that particular script, is I want to make it as relatable as possible. So I want people, when they watch it, to be like pointing at the screen and going, "Yes, I know a woman just like her," or "I've met a guy just like him," or "There was a dude last week who I bumped into who is just like that guy." So I want to make it as relatable as possible. So the fact that you say, you've sort of run across some of these folks in real life is really good. That's something that I'm really pleased about, because obviously that means I succeeded in that particular task. Because I mean, when people watch a film, no matter what the film might be, there needs to be some kind of relatability to the characters. So that's really cool that you thought that. Yeah, no, well, when I'm writing a script, it's because obviously my stuff is available for download off the internet. It's really important that people, doesn't matter where they're based, they might be in Luton or they might be in Las Vegas. It doesn't matter. They need to be able to understand the jokes. So I can't be using just Australian humor and Australian terms, because then all of a sudden no one overseas is going to understand what the hell I'm talking about. So it's really important for me when I'm editing my scripts that I make sure that any sort of phrases or terminology that might have snuck in there, that I make sure that I get them out, or I turn it into something that's universal. Otherwise, it narrows down my audience base, and that's not what I want to do. I want to make sure that everybody can enjoy my work. So yeah, no, I do make a very conscious effort to make sure that I'm as universal as I can possibly be. No. There's a few programs. So obviously, when people download my work, it goes through PayPal, and also people can sign up to the Beernuts Productions newsletter, which is Mailchimp, which most people that would run businesses would obviously know. Well, everybody sort of knows about PayPal, but people who run businesses would know about Mailchimp because it's a marketing. It's just a marketing thing that you can do newsletters through. It's really easy to use, but yeah. So and both of them give you. You can get statistics from there with your downloads and all of that sort of stuff. So I don't pay a huge amount of attention to where the downloads are coming from, to be honest with you, because that's not really something that matters to me, mainly because, like I said earlier, I want everybody to be enjoying it. So I suppose, in a way, I suppose I like to see where maybe I'm not hitting and try and get, a magazine interview or a podcast interview in that region, so I can try and broaden my horizons in that region. So it's not sort of so I suppose, if anything, I'm using it for the reasons that other people don't use it, because most people use it to target their specific audience, whereas I want to use it to target audience that aren't seeing me, so I can get them in as well. So I suppose I use it for opposite reasons that other businesses would. But yeah, I can get stats and all that sort of stuff, but it's not something that I tend to spend time, lying awake in bed worrying about, to be honest. So yeah. Actually, you're yeah, no, your weighing analogy, like as in you don't weigh yourself every day, is actually a brilliant analogy. That's exactly the exact same. Yeah, I couldn't have worded that any better. That's the exact way you should describe it to, because it's ridiculous to weigh yourself every day, because I mean, you might take a massive dump one morning and you're 1 kilo lighter than you were the day before, and the next day you don't. So I mean, it's silly. So yeah, no, you're absolutely 100% correct. And I think another thing in regards to that, so I mean, you hear about younger people than us getting all upset, checking like their Instagram and their Facebook to see how many likes, a certain post has had, and then, tearing their hair out if they haven't had so many likes and whatnot, and they're checking it every 10 minutes and driving themselves insane and ending up having to go into therapy for it. So it's just about, calming the farm and just relaxing and doing things in a sensible sort of manner, and yeah, I'm with you in that regard. So yeah, 100%. Yeah, pretty much. It's a necessary evil. So I use it for my business, and obviously I try and put as much fun and entertaining content up there as I possibly can, because it's a part of my business. It's a part of who I am and who Beernuts Productions is. So it's important for me to post. So I do. So if people hit up, I'm on YouTube, I'm on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. They just type in Beernuts Productions and I come up, and hopefully they see some cool posts that they really enjoy. But it's not something, again, like I don't post every 5 minutes. I'm not one of those annoying people that just post and post and post it, and you just go, oh my God, I can't handle you anymore, unfollow. That's not who I am. So yeah, there'll be a few posts every week. Hopefully, like I say, they're entertaining and people enjoy them. But yeah, no, I find it more of a necessary evil. I don't go on there for any sort of social interactions with people. I'm kind of old school. If I want to talk to somebody, I'll actually physically talk to them. So I don't use social media for. I actually got in trouble because I missed a friend's. His kid was being the christening of his latest child, and he just put a Facebook invitation up. Well, I didn't see his Facebook invitation, so I didn't go. So if he had have actually called me or emailed me, I would have attended. But just putting a general Facebook invitation out to people, I don't see that because I don't hit people's pages and stuff. So that's just not what I do. So I said to him, he's like, "Why didn't you come?" I'm like, "Well, buddy, you got to tell me these things. I don't sit around looking at Facebook invitations." So yeah, I just if you want to talk to me, then you can talk to me. You know what I'm saying? So that's just yeah, that's sort of how I sort of roll with that sort of thing. You've got a reason. You need to have a reason, yeah. Yeah, well, that's why I try and make any content I do. I try and make it as entertaining as I can, But at the well, like you say, I jump on there. I always make sure. When I first hired my marketing guru, she said to me, "Don't post more than 4 or 5 times in a 7 day period because people will just get sick of you. So you can't be posting 7 days a week or like twice or 3 times in a day because people will just switch their brains off and go, oh, not him again. You need to make sure that people actually want to see your content. And so when it pops up in their feed, they're like, oh, great, there's another post from Beernuts Productions, or yeah, Genuine Chit-Chat's just done another interview. Let's check that out. So you need them to actually want to see your content, not go, oh my God, not this guy again. So yeah, it's a balancing act that you got to do. So yeah, and that's why it's frustrating, but you need to do it. And it can be like, I mean, it can be engaging and fun. And I get told off by my marketing person all the time that I don't engage enough with the fans and people that enjoy my work, and it's something that I need to improve on. It's not something I do on purpose. I'm not like purposely ignoring people. That's not what I'm about. It's just I don't spend a lot of time on there, so I don't. I prefer to be making the actual films and the content for people to enjoy. Kind of like what you said earlier. I prefer to be busy making the movies and audio downloads and things like that for people to download and enjoy than typing up some kind of funny little post or whatever. So yeah, but I do understand. I've got enough common sense to know that you got to be on there and you got to keep it going and all that sort of stuff. It's just not something that, yeah, I'm constantly being told off to do a better job, and I constantly try and do a better job. Well, that's very true. I mean, it's I think people take for granted how easy it is to do, you know, what you do and what I do. I think people think we just rock up and bang, there it goes. Whereas, you know, I've got to write a script, I've got to cast it, I've got to get the crew, I've got to organize everything, I've got to get the budget together, I've got to pay people, I've got to make sure that, like, I'm running a proper business here. You know, I've got to make sure that everything happens properly. Otherwise, you know, I'll end up in jail or shot or something bad will happen, you know? So I've got to make sure. And at the end of the day, I've got to make sure that my content, my actual proper content that's on the website, that's on beernutsproductions.com, I've got to make sure that that's as entertaining as possible. Otherwise, it doesn't matter how good my social media stuff is, people just aren't going to download. They're not going to enjoy it. So my number one concern has to be the content of my material. So when I do How to Land That Dream Job, I got to make sure it's as good as it possibly can be, so that people enjoy it and get a laugh out of it, and then they'll come back and they'll download the next project, or they'll go back and see previous films that I've done and download some of them. So, you know, it's important to make sure the actual content is as good as it actually can be. Yeah, but you do it so well, so embrace it. You know, when you do something well, you gotta embrace it. You know. Absolutely. So yeah, Beernuts Productions itself as a company was founded in 2006, and then in 2010 I released my first film, which was a 90-minute long documentary called "I Will Not Go Quietly," and that's probably, well, it is the only serious film I've ever done. Everything else is sort of comedy based, but that's a proper genuine 90-minute documentary, and that was done in 2010. And since then, I've gone on to do 16 short comedy films, which all go for about 20, 25 minutes each. So they're not just 2 minute long films, they're proper 25-minute comedy films. I've also done 8 audio downloads and 5 books. So yeah, there's quite a bit of content, and that's all been done since 2010. So people are probably wondering, what did I do for the first 4 years, the 2006 to 2010? That was mainly trying to get funding and support for Beernuts Productions. So I would go to different, you know, production studios and distributors and all kinds of, all over the world. Yeah, producers and everybody, and you know, try and get funding for different projects. And then once they found out that I couldn't see, that I'm legally blind, that's when they were like, "Yeah, not a chance. We're not giving you any funding." Like, they would read the script and they go, "Oh, this is really great. We want to give you some funding and everything's great." And then they find out I can't see and it all gets pulled. So I got very frustrated with that, as people could well imagine. And so I thought, well, the best way to prove folks wrong, to show them that I can actually do what it is that I say I can do, is to actually make a film by myself. So I thought, well, the easiest, well, not so much the easiest, but the cheapest film I can make is a documentary, because essentially it's just talking heads. There's no, you know, stunt work needed or anything like that in a documentary. So they're reasonably cheap and straightforward to make. It's something I can edit myself. It's something I can shoot myself. So yeah, I thought, well, disability and mental health, they were the two subjects that are obviously close to my heart, being with my own personal story. And so yeah, I went about making the documentary, and then that led on one thing to another. Because obviously, after I made the documentary, I'm like, well, I want people to watch this. Obviously, how am I going to do that? And I thought, well, why not put it on my website? And then people, no matter where they are all over the world. So, because I did get it played in a cinema in Australia, up in Brisbane. But I mean, that's only a handful of people are going to see it there, and I want everybody to see it, you know. So I thought, well, if I put it up on the Beernuts Productions website, then everybody can see it no matter where they are in the world. So that's what I did. So yeah, and it's turned out to be that's my business model now. I make a project and I put it up on the website. So I'm a production company, distributor, all in one. So that's no third party involvement at all. We're completely independent, which is really cool. Well, you're absolutely right. So I have nobody telling me what I can and can't do. So I make the content that I want to make. You know, there's and a lot of the actors actually, it's funny because they're used to working on commercial type projects. You know, when we're at rehearsals, they're like, you know, how quick do I have to do my lines? How much time do we have to do this scene? And I always say to them, you've got as much time as it takes to do the jokes correctly. So there's no stress. The actors love it because there's no stress on them to get things done in a certain amount of time. You know, the joke is told how it needs to be told, and I've got nobody saying what I can and can't do. Nobody, no, you know, so there's no third party involvement, which means that it's completely independent, which I think lends, as you well say, to a better product because I've got nobody, you know, breathing down my neck saying this joke's inappropriate. So I can push the lines as far as I want to push them, and I can, you know, I can do that joke that the studio might say, oh, that's a little bit rude. You can't do that, or I don't like that, or whatever. I can do all of that stuff. And that's absolutely fantastic. And I think I genuinely do believe it leads to a better product, which is great. It means that, you know, hopefully people enjoy it that bit more, you know, so it's fantastic. No, no. A few people have actually said that they would like to see a sequel. I Will Not Go Quietly too, because obviously that was done back in 2010, and so they would like to see how things have progressed since 2010. Because I mean, it's nearly 10 years ago now. It's a long time when you think about it. I mean, time really does fly. So yeah, so I have had a few people, and it is something that I have absolutely strongly considered. Uh, I don't know when or if I would do it, but it is something that I can absolutely do, and I probably will do at some point. I just don't know when. But yeah, no, absolutely. You know, I like to make my projects. They might all be like they might be more leaning towards the comedy style, but I always like to make sure that they're as different as possible, whether it is in tone or subject matter or you know the way it's put together or made. I like to make all my projects a little bit different so that folks don't get bored with what I'm doing. So yeah, no, absolutely. I have thought about doing another documentary, and I probably will at some stage. Absolutely. Well, if we're talking about TV, I was obsessed with Breaking Bad. I thought that was the greatest show I've ever seen in all my life. I love everything about it. I think it's incredibly well written, shot, acting. I mean, I just love that show. I've seen it like countless times. I got the box set. I'll watch it like just religiously. Love it. And so obviously the prequel slash sequel, Better Call Saul, I'm really enjoying that. So that's season 4 is finished. So season 5 should be out sometime this year, hopefully. So I really enjoy Better Call Saul. I think that's it's. I mean, nothing's going to compare to Breaking Bad, but it's a good silver medal. You know what I mean? It's still a really great show, and I really enjoy the way they've done it. I think it's really clever. I really love it. So yeah, I like. I like that sort of style. The more sort of darker humor is sort of where I sort of tend to lean when it comes. So that's why I really enjoyed Breaking Bad, because I think it's a lot funnier than what people might first initially think on their first viewing. I think there's a lot more jokes in there than what people might have actually thought, if that makes sense. So it's quite a funny show in some parts, but and Better Call Saul is quite funny as well. It's very funny actually. But yeah, they're two shows that I really love. So I don't watch a huge amount of TV. I'm pretty fussy. I watch a lot of films. I'm a big film goer. I actually just yesterday I went to go see Booksmart. That just came out in the cinema here in Australia. It's been out. I've got a friend that lives in London, and she was the one that said to me, "You got to go watch it," because she knew that I would enjoy it, and I did. I thought it was really funny. But yeah, so I know that was out about a month or 6 weeks ago over there in the UK, but we just got it just yesterday. So I went along and I quite enjoyed that. It was quite funny. So yeah, that's a recent movie recommendation, I suppose. I, th- you know, it was Still Life. That I think because we were going through English films that I enjoyed, and I remember talking about This Is England, which I thought was an amazing film. Again, I tend to always lean towards the darker, and that's quite a dark film in places, and it's an incredible film. But yeah, Still Life was the one I think I recommended to you because it's a English comedy film, but it's really fantastic and quite moving at the end. It's a really top class film. The English do it well actually in regards to that sort of comedy. I find. So yeah, that and in regards to music, I'm I'm kind of alone. None of my friends like this at all. But I was mad for Oasis when they were up and about. And Liam Gallagher has just got his new album coming out soon, so I'm pretty excited about that. So I'll be checking out that because I just think he is hilariously amusing. I think well, so is Noel Gallagher. They're both very funny. But there's actually a really cool documentary that was released about Oasis back in 2016 called, I think it was called Supersonic, and it was looking back at their first 3 years in existence, and they've got all old footage and all that sort of stuff. And Liam and Noel are actually on it, and actually their mum is interviewed on it, and so it's really cool. It's a really great documentary. So if anybody out there is a big fan of Oasis like I am, and they haven't, I'm sure they would have seen that documentary because it was a big deal. But yeah, no, it's a high quality doco, that one. But yeah, really cool. Well, genuine chit chat, of course, of course. Uh, it's funny actually because I've been interviewed on a few. I obviously listen, you know, I listen to a podcast before I go on it to see what it's about and all that sort of stuff. And some of them I've ended up just listening to because I've ended up genuinely enjoying them. I thought I've listened to them, then they've interviewed me, and it was all cool. And they were really nice guys or girls or whoever they might have been, and I've ended up just starting to listen to them just because again, it's not something that I go hunting out podcasts. It's not I'm not that I don't really go hunting for them, but they just kind of sort of fall in, like I say, I hadn't heard about Genuine Chit Chat until someone told me about you, and I contacted you, and you said, okay, come on the show, and I had a listen. I'm like, oh, that sounds really cool, and then I did my interview with you, and it went really well, and I was really happy, and so I just tune in from time to time, and the same goes with a few of the other podcasts that I've been on too. So it's a funny way to meet people and discover people, and it's kind of by accident through what we were talking about earlier with marketing. It kind of just happens by accident, which is kind of cool. No, but I think what you said earlier is also correct in that. So I'll listen to whatever podcast. We'll use yours as the example because that's the one everyone's listening to now. So you listen to Genuine Chit Chat, and all of a sudden, I've learned about other people, and so I've got, oh, well, that sounds really cool. I'll check that out. So it's I've discovered other creative media and other people and all that sort of stuff through listening to podcasts, which I never would have learnt about unless I had have listened to the podcast. So it's because it expands your horizons, so to speak. So that's really cool too. Because I mean, that's the great thing about podcasts, generally speaking, is that people like myself who struggle to get on more commercial type media, I get a platform to tell everybody about Beernuts Productions, and then hopefully they can go on the website and download and enjoy my films, whereas they would have never had that opportunity previously. And the same goes for me. I get to go onto other people's website and enjoy their content, which I would not have done previously if I hadn't have heard about them on a podcast. So I think podcasts are playing a really important part in helping creative independent artists sell their work, whether they be musicians or filmmakers or whatever they might be. I think podcasts are really important and a really great way for people to share their work with people who may not have otherwise have known they existed, which is really, really cool. No, no, it was funny actually. How I came across Simon was purely accidental. I'd hired a different guy to come down. It was the third film I've ever done. So the advertising meeting is the name of the movie that people. It's obviously it's up and available on the Beernuts Productions website. And so I contacted a different guy who runs a production studio, and I said to him, I need a guy to film because, well, to go back a bit further, so after I did the documentary, I thought, well, I'll do my next film now. So the next film, I'm like, well, I'm going to actually hire some crew to actually do this because it's going to be a lot easier than to do it myself because there's, it's a scripted project and all that sort of stuff. So I hired a couple of guys and they were jerks, basically. They sort of just filmed what they wanted to film, which kind of doesn't really work. So I sacked them, got rid of them. And so for the next project, which was the advertising meeting, I contacted a different production studio and I'm like, I want to hire you to film my movie. And the guy's like, yeah, no worries. And I think he thought that I was, I don't know, a hack or a dickhead or whatever he thought I was. I've got no idea. And so on the actual day of, a couple of days before filming, Simon calls me up and he's like, hey, this is Simon here. And I'm like, oh, who are you? And he's like, oh, well, I won't mention the other fellow's name. So and so got another booking and can't do your film now, which I think is total bullshit. But that again is beside the point. He said, so I can't. So he called me up and he said, can I replace him? Would that be okay with you? And I'm like, well, I suppose. I mean, this is literally, we were shooting on a Saturday and this conversation took place on a Wednesday. So I'm like, well, I don't really have a huge choice in the matter. So I suppose it's going to have to be. So Simon came along and he did a fantastic job. So after we finished editing, because I edit with Simon as well, after I finished editing, I said to Simon, well, do you want, next time I do a project, how about I just contact you directly, leave the other people out of it, and we'll just do it by ourselves? And he's like, sounds good to me. So yeah, that's sort of how Simon came to be. And I've done every project since. I've done it with him. So yeah, we've done, out of the 17 films, we've done all but 3. So yeah, we've done 14 out of the 17 together, which is pretty cool. So yeah, it's a really good working relationship now. He sort of knows what I'm thinking before I have to tell him, which is great because he knows my style of how I like things done and how I like things shot. So it's really cool when you can have somebody like that. And it's yeah, it's a complete accident. So if this other guy hadn't have been a jerk and ditched me for somebody else, then I would never have met Simon. So it's funny just how life works out like that sometimes. Don't be like that, Mike. You've got all the power. You've got the power. You can walk around and just tell people how shit needs to be. You know, don't undersell it. You know. Yeah, well, absolutely. So the first, so as soon as I finish writing a script, I'll send it to Simon to tell and organize a date with him. He's the first person that I contact because obviously he actually, that's the other good thing about Simon. He actually owns all the equipment. So we rarely, occasionally we have to rent something, but very rarely. So that's the other reason why Simon's really cool because he's got a garage full of all the audio visual stuff you'd ever want. So yeah, so I contact Simon. We go through what equipment we need. We obviously, the first thing we do is get a date that we're going to shoot and edit, but then we just go through what we need equipment wise and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, like I said, because we've been doing it so long now, he kind of knows what I like and what I want anyway now, which is really, really cool. So it makes working a lot easier when the guy that you're working with knows exactly how you like things done. So, and you know, and he's never afraid to put an opinion forward and say, oh, how about we do this, or this might be a good idea, and I'll say either yes or no. And yeah, no, it's really, really cool. And look, that goes for everybody as well. So even like I know I've told you previously, I'm really strict with my scripts with the actors. So I don't like actors improvising my scripts, you know, so how things are written on the page. I have it's an old fashioned saying, but if it's not on the page, it doesn't make the stage. And that's kind of what I sort of live by with the actors. And some actors like it, some don't. But I mean, that's how I like things done. So you know, if they don't like it, then they don't have to work for me. That's cool. I mean, I don't hold grudges. People can do what they want to do, so that's cool. But yeah, so I I go through, like I said, and actors who do a great job, and if I think when I'm doing another film, if they'll fit a particular role, then I'll get them in and I'll audition them for that as well. So it's cool. I've got quite a nice sort of database of different actors and crew members, like artists and musicians and other people who I use. Which so when now, obviously, like I say, this is our 17th film. That means I've got a good database of people that I can sort of choose from with different projects, which is really, really cool. Yeah, no, that's yeah. Everything you said is pretty much correct. So yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. So I I like to just generally speaking, when people hit up the website, they'll see a lot of the films about social sort of issues that people are quite sensitive about. So I've done drugs, I've done prostitution, I've done pornography, I've done the environment, and I like to get subjects like that and really tear them apart and yeah, sort of. I am a big believer though in that I'm here to entertain. I'm not here to preach. So I don't. I purposely don't put my opinions front and square. I try and I try. There's a subtle message in them, I suppose, but I don't. My number one aim is to entertain, and then anything that comes secondary to that. But you are quite right in what you said earlier. I mean, yeah, I do like to talk about social things within my work. I think that's sort of important, just to weed a few little things in there. I think is kind of important. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm a huge believer in allowing people to live their lives how they want to live them, and not to. I don't believe in whether it be governments or anybody telling anybody what they should do, say, think, feel, act, etc., etc., etc. So that's why I'm not huge on religion as an umbrella. I'm not saying any specific religion. I'm just saying the thought of it, I just don't like how it can be controlling. I don't like people telling other people how they need to live their life. I think people should be. I'll take it back to something in Australia at the moment. There's a really big thing with lockout laws. Now, lockout laws are essentially if you go to a bar or a nightclub or somewhere that serves alcohol, if you're not in that establishment by 1 a.m., you can't get into that establishment. It's a lockout law. And so I think that's bullshit, because I think that you should be allowed to go into any establishment whenever you want. I don't think that they should say no go. I mean, if you want to, if you're like, let's say you're a cab driver, right? You drive a taxi, and your shift ends at 3 a.m. in the morning, and you've had a no good, rotten shift. You've done 3 p.m. till 3 a.m. You've had a bunch of drunks or some really annoying teenagers or whatever it might have been, and you just want to go to a bar and have a pint before you go home. You can't. And I think that's bullshit. I think you absolutely should be allowed to. You should, like, I'm a firm believer in, governments and whatnot not getting in people's faces and their space. If you want to hug a tree, then who am I to tell you that you can't hug a tree? If you serious, man, I'm dead serious. I mean, the whole thing with gay marriage, that only just got legalized in Australia just recently. And there's a wonderful comedian here in Australia. He's one of my all-time favorite comedians called Sean McAuliffe. And he said it so beautifully. He goes, I've got to get this right because I don't want to misquote the man. He said, what two men who live in Perth, who I've never met before, decide to do in the privacy of their own home, well, of course that's my business. And I mean, like, how, like, you can't sum it up any better than that. I mean, it's just, that's how ridiculous the argument for the no vote is. I mean, it's just like, if people want to marry, let them marry. I mean, what do I care? It's got nothing to do with me. I mean, just, they're not invading my space in any way, so let them be. I'm just a big fan in people being allowed to live their lives how they want to live them. I don't have the right to tell somebody else what they can and can't do, and vice versa. I don't think, and that's one of the things that I get really upset about. Well, back when I first started Beernuts Productions, when people said to me, "You can't make films because you're blind." Well, fuck you, buddy. How do you know what I can and can't do? You don't even know me. I've met you over email and a phone conversation. You don't know me. You don't know what I can and can't do. You don't know my skill set. Don't tell me what I can and can't do. So, it's just. So I suppose it comes from a place of being discriminated against, because I mean, I was denied a proper education. I was denied employment opportunities, all based on my disability through people's ignorance. So I think that's where that sort of passion for that comes from. Because I think I've kind of lived it, and so I don't like it, and so I don't think other people should have to put up with it either. You know what I'm saying? Yes. Yeah. Yeah, no, well, I agree. I mean, it, yeah, I mean, I'm with you in regards to religion. I think if it makes somebody be a better person, love thy neighbor, and if they were a jerk beforehand and then they found God and turned into a nice person, then fantastic. That's great. You know what I mean? So that's marvelous. But I mean, I don't believe in people shouldn't dictate to others what they should do. People should just be free to live their life how they want to live it. And like you say, I mean, it comes down to, I mean, in the US, your US listeners who might be persons of color that might be listening, they would be nodding their heads and they would be going, yeah, I was denied employment opportunities just because I'm a black man. I mean, how ridiculous is that? It's not like, because at the end of the day, you got to think about it like this. I mean, I didn't put my hand up when I was a baby and say, I'd like to be blind, please. And he didn't put his hand up and say, I'd like to be black, please. And the gay guy didn't put his hand up and say, I'd like to be gay, please. It's just what happened. That's just how it is. So, I mean, it's nobody's any different to anybody else. You know what I'm saying? So you just, and that's another reason I think why when we go back to the films that I make, I like to make fun of everybody equally because again, I don't like to play favorites. So with How to Land That Dream Job, you know, there's 16 different employees from 16 different walks of life. I make fun of them all equally, and none of it's done in a malicious, nasty, or malice way. It's all done in humor and in jest, and hopefully it makes people sort of laugh at themselves as well and go, I can be a little bit like that, and they have a bit of a laugh at themselves as well, which again I think is really important for people to sort of step back a little bit sometimes and just have a little bit of a laugh at what they do and what others do, and it kind of diffuses a lot of tense situations. That's the great thing about humor. It can really diffuse a really tense situation, which I think is a very powerful thing to do. Absolutely, 100%. And yeah, no, I appreciate what you just said because I agree with it, and thank you for your kind words too. But yeah, there's not much more I can add to that because I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, I could make fun of you because of your facial hair, but it's your choice to have that facial hair. So you know that's a fair comment on my part. You know what I mean? So yeah, no. Yes, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I mean, yeah, bullying is an awful thing, and I think everybody at some point has most likely been bullied for one reason or another, and it's horrible. It's awful, you know. And I mean, bullies are cowards. Essentially, that's what they are. They're insecure and scared about something of their own, and that's why they pick on you, because it's a get them before they get me attitude. That's the attitude a bully has. And so if you can disarm them, like you say, it's very powerful, because now they don't have to get you, because you're getting yourself. So they're like, well, what do I do now? What do I do now? And so, yeah, no, absolutely. So it's, yeah, it's, but I also think that when it comes to disability, I like to think of it as unintentional ignorance, because in Australia, especially, there's not a lot of education in regards to whether it be physical or intellectual disability. And so people just plain don't understand it because there's no education there. So, and again, if you're able to educate people with humor and they can have a laugh, then all of a sudden they learn something, and they're like, oh, I didn't realize that I just learned something. I thought I was being entertained, but actually they just learned something and they were entertained at the same time. So, like when I made the documentary, because disability and mental health are really heavy subjects, it was really important to me to put humor through that project so that it wasn't too heavy and people aren't after 5 minutes going, oh my God, this is just, well, this is, oh, Christ, what am I going to do? You know, I don't want people knifing themselves in the cinema when they watch it, you know? So it was important to me to make sure there was a steady stream of humor through that project, so that, you know, you can educate, you get through to people better when they're relaxed and laughing and having a good time. So, you know, there are some really important messages in that documentary, but, you know, hopefully it sinks in a little bit better because I've put a bit of humor in there as well. So yeah, it's a really great tool, humor. It's really important, and I think it's something that probably the world needs now more than it probably ever has, to be honest. No, precisely. And I mean, I know it sounds very corny, and people might think that I'm full of shit. But the truth of the matter is that I really do enjoy entertaining people. I mean, before I was a filmmaker, I used to do stand up comedy as a living, and you know, getting on stage and telling jokes and having people laugh. I mean, it's a wonderful feeling to make folks laugh. You know, it's a very, anybody who's even done an open mic spot at their local bar or whatever when they're doing a comedy night, and they've put their hand up and done an open mic stuff, and a few people have had a bit of a laugh at one of their jokes, you know, they get a real rush from it because it's really, really cool to make people laugh. And, you know, with the films I do now, that's why, I mean, comedy is my genre, but it's really fantastic to, you know, have somebody download a film and they sit there for 20, 25 minutes and they can forget about their problems and just have a good laugh. It gives me pleasure to give them pleasure. I know, again, it sounds really corny and whatnot, but it is the truth. I mean, that's why anybody who's in the entertainment business, whether they're a singer, an artist, a filmmaker, whatever they might be, you know, that's why they create content, is to entertain and to give people joy. You know, I mean, even as odd as it might sound, even a horror film can give people enjoyment because people might enjoy jumping out of their skin, you know? So, you know, somebody really gets a rush out of somebody, you know, shitting their pants. And that's cool, you know, that's great. So, I mean, that's why you make your podcast, is so that people can listen to it while they're having a car ride or whatever. They're on a long, you know, a long day trip, or they've had a crappy day at work or whatever it might be. They can put on genuine chit chat, or they can watch a Beernuts Productions film and they can forget about their problems. I mean, their wife might have left them, or they might be in financial strife, or whatever it might be, man. I mean, everybody's got something going on, but you know, they can put on whatever piece of entertainment they want, and they can sort of melt away for half an hour or an hour or whatever it might be, and they can enjoy that. And that's really cool. It's a really lovely thing that people like you and myself can do. It's a really great gift, I suppose, that we can give people, which is great. You know, it makes me happy to entertain folks. So that's why, I mean, I always push it really hard, but that's why I always want people to watch my films, because I want them to watch them and I want them to laugh and I want them to be entertained. Well, I suppose going backwards with your questions, because I tend to do things backwards. The People say to me all the time, "Oh, you make it sound so easy." Oh, I wanted to make a film, so I just went ahead and made a film. But it really is that easy. I mean, I wanted to make movies. I had scripts written, so if I can't get funding from the traditional bodies, then what other choice do I have other than to fund it myself? So that's, like I said earlier, that's why I chose a documentary, because it's easy to fund and it's easy to make. And so that's why, so you just got to sit down, you got to figure it out somehow. You know, if you want to, if you're in a band, for example, we'll take that example, and you want to make music, well, you know, scrape together the funds to get a recording studio for a day and get your gear in there and punch out what you can punch out and put your content wherever people can see it, and just go ahead and do it. I mean, the only person stopping you is you. So, you know, I mean, I remember back after I did the documentary, I was having a bit of trouble, sort of thinking to myself, well, I want to make these next films now, and I was sort of grumbling and all of that sort of stuff, and my mate said to me, well, you're the one that chose this career path, so stop your complaining and get on with it. If you want to do it, just do it. What are you waiting for? You know? And they're exactly correct. I mean, I'd made the documentary, which is probably the hardest step, is the first. And then I'd sort of stopped for about 6 months because I was sort of, I don't know what I was waiting for, really. I guess I thought that, well, I suppose I was thinking, well, now that I've done that, now I can get funding from the traditional bodies, but they still weren't sort of biting. And so I was like, oh shit, well, that plan didn't work. And they were like, well, you've done it before, do it again. What's wrong with you? So yeah, it's and that's exactly correct. So that's what I did. And like I say, I've just done my 17th film. So, you know, it's yeah, if people just they want to create something, just go ahead. I mean, there's nothing stopping you. There's always a way. I mean, a lot of filmmakers will whinge and complain that, oh, I don't have money to get this camera, or I can't get that location, or whatever. Well, work around it. You know, like with How to Land That Dream Job, there's only two locations: the outside of somebody's house and my office. So, I mean, I didn't even have to rent an office location. I just used my own. Why spend money on somebody else's office when I can just use my own? So, you know, you got to sit down, you got to think about things, you know, maybe a little bit more left of center or a bit laterally, but I mean, there's always a way. Sometimes I've got to manipulate my scripts a little bit to make it fit in the budget. So if there was, I don't know, if I had a script where there was a stunt or an explosion or something like that that I can't afford at the moment, well, I need to rework that joke so I can make it work. I mean, a really wonderful example is for one of the films I did, The War on Drugs. I wanted to do a scene in a laboratory, laboratory. Sorry about that, but can't say the word. So I contacted all the universities around here and said, you know, can I film in one of your labs? And they're like, no, go away. And I thought, well, that's not very nice. So then I had to think to myself, well, what else looks like a lab? And I'd just done a photo shoot with a magazine down at a brewing company, because obviously Beernuts Productions brewing. So they'd taken me down to a brewery to do a photo shoot. And so I thought, well, if they're cool for me, if they're cool for the magazine to do a photo shoot there, I wonder if they'll be cool for us to film there, because a brewery looks like a lab because it's all that kind of equipment, you know. So I contacted them and they're like, yeah, you can use our brewery to film a couple of scenes. So I did, and it actually worked out for the better, because then I turned the girl that was playing a scientist, I turned her character into an alcoholic because I thought that would be funny. So if I hadn't have been at a brewery, the idea of turning her character into an alcoholic would never have come to me, and it makes that scene work even better. So I mean, sometimes what was it, the Rolling Stones? You don't always get what you want, but sometimes you get what you need. And that's kind of the truth. You know what I mean? So it's, I couldn't, I think that's a really good example, actually. I couldn't get the location that I needed, but using something very similar actually worked out even better. So yeah, you just got to think laterally and, you know, pull your resources and use your brain and just make it happen somehow. Do I believe in aliens? That is a random question. Uh, Well, I definitely think that human beings are such flawed creatures that there has to be something else out there, because surely we can't be the best that there is. So there has to be something, whether it's an alien or a god or something. I don't know what it is, but there's got to be something better out there, because human beings are very flawed creatures. So I can't for 1 second believe that we're as good as it gets. You know what I mean? No, well, I must say, Tanya, who did that role, I've worked with Tanya once before, and she nailed that. I got to say, she did that role really, really well, because she comes across as quite cuckoo bananas in the film, and she's actually a really lovely young lady who's very sensible and normal. But I tend to, because it's the second film she's done for me, and both times her character has been really out there and strange. And I apologized to her, because I said to her after we finished this, I said to her, I'm really sorry, Tanya. People are going to start to think you're actually like that in real life. But yeah, no, she's a wonderful, wonderful actress. I'm really lucky that she's been in two of my films now, and I've got no doubt going forward I'll work with her again because she's a really she's a very talented young lady. Yeah, what? Yeah, I'm big on that. I hate. I think it might have something to do with my bad eyesight, but I hate edits in films because I think it takes you away from the action and from what's happening. So whenever I do any of my films, I edit as little as possible because I think that it's really important to see, even when a character isn't speaking, you want to see their facial expression to see what their reaction is to the person that is speaking. So I'm not big on edits, and so yeah, with my last film before my last film, so the prostitution, the untold story, there's that massive scene that goes for about 12, 13 minutes, and yeah, Rebecca and Kale obviously they had a lot of dialogue to learn, but it was really important that they had that scene down properly and that we followed the whole action with the camera and there was no edits whatsoever because it would have taken you right out of that moment if there had been. So it was really, really important. There was a lot of rehearsal, and they did actually. Rebecca, I don't know if you recognised her because we made her up as the unemployed single mother in How to Land That Dream Job. The heroin addict is actually that's the same actress, but the makeup they did a really, really good job with Rebecca because again, she's actually a really lovely and classy young lady, and the makeup artist Alicia, she did a marvelous job with making her look like a homeless drug addict. So it was she did a wonderful job on Rebecca's makeup. But yeah, it's actually the exact same actress that was in both of those films. Yeah, absolutely. So beernutsproductions.com. So drink a beer, eat some nuts, and watch my productions. So that's really the number one place people need to go is just beernutsproductions.com, and they can download all of our work. So all 17 films are up there. There's 8 audio downloads, and there's also 5 books. So whatever you're into, hopefully we've got it covered. And yeah, so beernutsproductions.com and across all the social media. So YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So you just type in Beer Nuts Productions and we come up. So yeah, like, follow, share, all of that good stuff. But yeah, all they need to know is Beer Nuts Productions is where it's at. So hit it up, enjoy the work, and I genuinely do hope you, all your listeners, enjoy the film as much as you did. Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, no, the YouTube channel's got tons of clips. It's got media clips. It's got little trailers and a few other behind the scenes kind of clips as well. So there's tons of content on our YouTube channel as well that people can enjoy. So yeah, no matter what they're like, I say, I like to keep things as different as I can with each project. So yeah, hopefully if they download 1 or 2 films, they'll see that and they'll enjoy that and they'll start downloading a few more and check us out on YouTube and all the socials, and hopefully get lots of fun and enjoyment out of what we do. Absolutely. And thank you so much, Mike. I genuinely do appreciate you having me on the podcast and your time. And yeah, fantastic. Thank you for having me on. Yeah. Yeah, hey, look, absolutely. I would genuinely really appreciate that 100%. Yeah, I'm actually going in the recording studio in a couple of weeks to actually record a new audio piece. So I can record a quick 30-second fun little promo down then. I'll make a note of doing that. So it'll be a proper actual, it'll be like a Beernuts Productions slash genuine chit chat kind of, yeah, I'll do a nice little 30-second, 45-second little promo, which hopefully you'll like, but it'll be properly done. So yeah, no, that's I would really appreciate that. That'd be fantastic. Yeah, well, I'm going in the studio July 29, so I'll record something special down like just for you because I've done that with there's another podcast I've been on. We don't have cookies with Jason Marshall in America. He interviews me. Oh, I reckon, yeah, kind of the same, like once every 6 months or so, same as you. And he asked me if I could do a couple of little promos, especially for him. And of course, I didn't mind. It was perfectly fine. So I did. So I'll do the same thing. What I did for him, I'll do a very similar thing for you as well. So and it just sort of times in nicely that I'm actually going in a proper recording studio, so it'll actually sound nice as well. So not just on a crappy equipment that I've got, it'll actually sound proper. So yeah, no, absolutely, I'll do that, and I'll email that to you once it's done. So that'll be yeah, 29th of July. I'm in the studio, so it'll be the first couple of days of August. It'll come through. Yeah. No, hey, look, anytime. And if you need anything re-recorded or you want anything at all, you just let me know. It's never a problem. So I'm only too happy to help out because, like I said, I am genuinely grateful for you having me on the show. So whatever you need going forward, you just let me know. So yeah. Absolutely, Mike. You have a good Saturday. See you, Mike. Have a good one.